Good evening, and welcome to the Miracle of Prosperity. I am Reverend Jim Webb. I serve as Senior Minister of the Tacoma Metaphysical Chapel, and I'm the author of The Soul of Prosperity, as well as my two latest books, Prosperity from A to Z, and Create a Self-Manifesting Vision Board. It's such an honor to be here tonight, and it's such a special night. We're going to look at prosperity and many facets of prosperity, because prosperity is more than just money and stuff. Prosperity is an overarching sense of well-being. Prosperity is a sense of peace that passes all understanding. Prosperity is professional prosperity, where you have a wonderful job with wonderful pay, where you provide a wonderful service in a wonderful way. Prosperity is relationship prosperity, where your relationships are harmonious with your friends, your families, your lovers, and most importantly, with yourself, because inner conflict is mitigated. Yes, prosperity is financial as well, where your finances are no longer a source of worry, but are a source of comfort and ease. And prosperity is logistical. Prosperity is logistical, meaning that your life just works well. Your struggles, your hassles, and the challenges of life are mitigated. So we're going to work on all of that tonight, because there are many factors to prosperity. And some of the factors that go into a prosperous life are obvious and key. And one of the most obvious and key factors to a prosperous life is self-love. In my book, The Soul of Prosperity, there is one sentence that basically focuses everything the book is about. And that key sentence in the book is, self-love is the key to prosperity. Now, why is that? And what is self-love? Self-love is the key to prosperity because self-love says, I am worthy, I am worth it, I am deserving, and I allow it. Because prosperity is always there. Prosperity is waiting to bless us. We must allow it. And the energy that allows prosperity is the energy of self-love. So what is self-love? I define it as a balanced, healthy self-regard, self-esteem, and an awareness of yourself as lovable, deserving, devoid of criticisms and condemnations that would cause you to withhold from yourself. Those are some of the ways that I define it. But I'm not alone tonight. We have a special guest. We have a special guest that I've known and known of for many years. She just came out with a new book. And since she wrote, quote, the book on self-love, I'm very glad that she's going to be joining us shortly. I'm talking about Jamila White, and her book is A Year of Self-Love Journal. And we're so glad to have you, Jamila. Welcome.
Thank you, Reverend Jim, and thank you so much for having me on the show. It's my pleasure.
It's my pleasure and honor that you're here. Jamila is a psychic, life coach, author, intuitive, and all that in a bag of chips. She recently relocated to Barbados,
Yes.
living her best life. I want your life, girlfriend. and she continues to do powerful and transformative work with clients. So, Jamila, I love your book.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That means a lot coming from you.
Oh, I just love it. You know why I love it? Let me count the ways. I sound like William Shakespeare, but let me count the ways. I love it because it has so many interactive exercises that are not only that are mind exercises, teaching us how to think differently about ourselves, about our world, helping us to forgive ourselves. They have body exercises, teaching us how to be comfortable with our bodies and accept ourselves and our bodies as is. They have spiritual exercises that create more mindfulness. And all of these work wonderfully in harmony to
Thank you.
create a consciousness of self love, which is the key to prosperity. And that's why I love your book.
Thank you so much. Yes, it was very intentional. So the book is a year of self-love, 52 weeks of prompts and practices for loving who you are. And each week has an affirmation, journaling prompts, a mind, body, spirit exercise, something that you do, and then some either worksheets or other exercises, something that you write. And so for each week of the 52 weeks, there's a theme. So you'll have affirmations, journaling prompts, and activities for that theme of self love for each week that you are writing in the journal.
Yes, and there is teaching inherent in every exercise. There's a lesson, a new idea, a new way to see things in every of the exercises. So not only do you get the exercises, but you get the instruction on how to restructure your life and develop a consciousness of self love. Now, Jamila, I clumsily described self love before. What is your definition of self
Well,
love
I
beyond?
liked your definition where you talked about thinking of yourself as being loving and deserving of good things. I think that's an awesome place to start. A lot of times people think of a very superficial definition of self love. Of I'm going to take a bubble bath, or I'm going
Yes,
to
I call your definition of self love beyond the bubble baths because it's
beyond the
deeper,
bubble
more
bath, right? And I
powerful.
mean that's important, and it's important to treat ourselves well. But at the
Yes,
end of the day, is do I love myself, and are my everyday choices loving? Do I feel that I am worthy? Do I feel that I'm deserving of a good and happy, joyful, abundant life?
yes.
Those are the things that I feel are the underpinning of self love. And
Mhm.
even underneath that, another layer, in my view, is am I looking at myself through the eyes of spirit? Because through the
Mhm.
eyes of spirit, we have no fault, we have no imperfection because we were
Mhm.
perfectly designed. And if I
Yes,
can get closer and closer and closer to looking at myself that way with the unconditional love, not
yes,
do I love myself when I'm doing well and my bank account is full and I can check the boxes, but can I love myself through the challenges? Can I
yes,
love myself in those moments when I'm not so pleased, but yet I can still love myself. And for me, that's really what self-love is about. And then we get into the other parts about pampering and self-care and all of that. But do I advocate for myself? Do I have good
yes,
boundaries? All of
yes.
these things fall under self-love. And how are we practicing that? And so for me, I wanted to take self-love off the philosophical shelf and make it really practical. Like, okay, what is the practice to getting to that place of unconditional love? And it's a journey for all of us. It isn't a okay, well, I snap my fingers and I'm there. I'm not there yet, and I wrote a book. It's a practice
Yes,
of getting closer and closer and closer and closer
yes,
along the way and making progress. But this is self-love is one of those things where even the smallest amount of progress yields really big dividends. If you can
yes,
just move the needle, if we can all just move the needle a little bit further from where we were to where we want to be in our self-love journey, we're going to start to see, not just feel good about ourselves, but we're going to start to see the outside world change because people start to treat us the way that we're treating ourselves. When we
mhm,
set the example for how we want to be treated based on how we
mhm,
treat ourselves. And when we start loving ourselves, we walk differently, we talk differently, we have
mhm.
a different energy and frequency. And
Yes.
individual people, institutions, and the world starts to respond to you differently
Mhm,
when you're walking in that. And so, one of the most joyful things for me as a coach is when I see with clients that light bulb moment of I did this and I've been doing this whatever practice they have that's loving for
Mhm.
themselves. And now I'm
Yes.
starting to see that there's a cause and effect into how things are showing up in my life and
Yes.
how the world is reflecting back to me
Mhm.
new love that I have for myself. And that is a really
Yes.
one of the highlights of my work that I do with my clients.
Yes. So that is actually quite synonymous with prosperity practices and principles because the essence of it is you change your inner cause and your outer effect must change because
Yes.
your inner cause, your outer effect is simply a reflection of your inner cause. So
Absolutely.
more love in means more love all around.
Yes. Yes.
And developing that in whatever way is possible for you can only help and bless. Would that be
Yes.
accurate?
I think so. I think so. I
Mhm.
think we are the things that we see and how we perceive them really
Mhm.
is a reflection of what's going on with us. I
Yes.
think that shows up in so many different ways. We're talking about self love, but it also shows up in the ways that we're frustrated. We walk around with a funky attitude, irritated at everything, frustrated at
Mhm.
everything. That's the day that people start cutting us off on the highway. That's the day that the key locks and the jams in the lock. All these
Yes.
other things that
Mhm.
are created from the frustration energy. And so
Yes.
what is reflecting back to us is a constant barometer of how we're doing with ourselves, I think.
Yes. And you know, the other thing I love, you said it a slightly different way, but you said these exercises will help you see yourself as God sees you. And the
Yes.
way I often interpret that is we need to put on God's glasses and
Mm.
correct our vision. God's
Mhm.
glasses show us our perfection. But you know, the other thing that God's glasses show us? They show us a different world. Instead of seeing a hostile world with doors slammed in our faces, instead of seeing a world of chaos, we see a world that has been created by mistake, by mistaken perceptions, and we see the good and the potential good and the God in that. And we can see a different world. And when we can see a different world, that different world can serve us better than the world we have seen before.
Mm.
And when we put on God's glasses, we can see God differently as well. One of the key tenets of A Course in Miracles is let me see this differently. Let me
Mhm.
see God as let me see God as unconditional love. Let me see God as present and not absent. Let me see God as supportive, as opposed to seeing God as uh, one who would condemn us. Let me see the
Mhm.
world not as a wicked, hostile place, but let me see the world as the playground God has given me. And all of these things, a miracle is a shift in perception. And all of these perceptual shifts can create for us a different experience.
Yes.
And that's why self love and prosperity are wonderfully intertwined. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I agree. And when you were saying sometimes people can perceive that this is a harsh, dangerous, uncaring kind of world, and we see examples of that in the news, and it's easy to see what's happening in the world and in our communities,
Yes, yes,
and want to feel like the world is wrong. And
yes,
one way to look at that, which is an extension of self love, is that situation needs more love. The people involved
yes,
in the situation need more love.
yes,
And the
yes.
actions and the choices that are causing the discomfort, the pain, the
Mhm.
trauma are
They're
arising
calls for
from
love.
a lack of self-love. You can't behave in these
Mhm.
ways that are so hurtful to yourself, to
Yes.
others, to communities if you love yourself unconditionally. And I think
These
sometimes
are
people
calls
get
for
caught up
love.
calling for love. People get
Yes.
caught up in I like myself, I think highly of myself, which it can be ego stuff, but you don't always love yourself because you can't be causing that kind of harm if you're coming from this place of love, in this place of
Yes.
community, in this place of caring, and even one could say serving and protecting. You know,
Yes.
that
Yes.
that where is the love in that equation? And
Yes.
how
Yes.
do you get to a place of hostility
Mhm.
if you are loving to yourself? And I don't think that you can. I think
Yes.
those two things can't exist in the same place at the same time.
Yes. So a wonderful barometer of our continually developing and continually evolving self-love is how we react to things in the world. Now our task is to be so self-loving that we have so much love in overflow that we become lighthouses for love. And that's
Mhm.
our spiritual task. That's our spiritual journey. And when we are so overflowing in love, we are natural channels or conduits for it. And we need not get bogged down in it anymore. For example, and I'm going to quote the Bible here, uh, and if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into the ditch. That's Matthew 15:4. And what Jesus was telling us there was, do not get down in the quicksand and the morass of what others are experiencing. You stay up in your light. And in John 12:32, Jesus said, and if I be lifted up, I will call all men unto me. And that wasn't only for Jesus, that was for all of us. So our task is to develop so much self love, self light, self peace, self grace, that we, no matter what is going on in our outer world, we continue to be aware of the infinite love that flows to us and through us. We continue to be aware of the presence of love. And we continue to shine love on those places we see outside of us where there is an obvious call for love.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned a word that really kind of jumped out to me because it's a word that I use a lot
Uh-huh.
when I'm talking about self love, especially for um, intuitives and energy sensitive people, empaths, and
Yes,
people who pick up on the vibes of
yes,
people, places, and situations. You mentioned the
yes,
word overflow.
yes,
And for me, the word overflow and self love are so connected because
yes.
sensitive people and people who work in helping professions, people who work in
Mm-hmm.
healing professions, people who may not work in those professions, but they are the light in their circle of friends or in their family,
Yes.
are often trying to pour into other people because they are naturally compassionate, kind, giving people. But what I
Yeah.
see happening so much, and this is where the issue with self love comes in, is
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to pour from what's in the cup and not pouring from the overflow. And what I
Yes.
mean by that is what's in the cup is for us. It's the things
Mm-hmm.
that it's the energy, the love, the light that we need in order to live a joyful, happy, abundant, peaceful life.
Yes.
The overflow, it should be so much that we're so abundant in love and energy and whatever that we can give to people from our overflow because our cup runneth over. And what I
Yes.
see many times among those of us in these helping and healing professions, or those of us who are compassionate individuals, is
Mm-hmm.
their cup is empty because they're
Yes.
constantly pouring from what's in the cup instead of
Mm-hmm.
taking the time to fill up the cup, fill up
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, fill up our energy, to rest, to reconnect, to recharge, and then pour from the overflow. And then the feeling is the constant exhaustion, the constant overwhelm, the constant I can't have enough get up and go, or
Yeah.
and depression and anxiety, even to that extent. And I see this time and time again. And so when we get on an airplane, one of the first things they tell us in the safety instructions is put your own, in the event of an
Mm-hmm.
emergency, the oxygen
Mm-hmm.
mask will drop down, put your own oxygen mask on
On
first,
first. Yes.
because you cannot help anybody else if you fall out, if you pass out. So
Yes.
we even get that our cell phones have to be recharged. We are very diligent about plugging in our phones to
Mm-hmm.
recharge the battery, but we are not that diligent about recharging our own energy because we're busy trying to pour into other people from the empty place instead of
Yes.
taking the time to fill up within ourselves, fill up, connect to spirit, whatever that looks like for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that place of abundance, you can pour into people without it costing you the exhaustion and the overwhelm and all of that. And so when you said that word overflow, it just,
Mm-hmm.
really just jumped out
Yes.
for me because I'm constantly talking about pouring from the overflow, which means you have to take care of self first so that you
Yes.
can be giving and loving with others. And so
Yes,
that is
let
a part of our self-love journey, is to
yes,
love ourselves first. And for
yes.
those who are naturally giving, sometimes they feel like that's selfish.
And let's
Um,
unpack that a little bit more. Let's
yeah.
unpack that a little bit more. Let's talk about the misunderstanding of the martyr. The
Mm,
misunderstanding of the martyr is based on conditional love, not self and unconditional love. The misunderstanding of the martyr is this: if I martyr myself, if I give of myself, if I sacrifice of myself, my reward will be elsewhere,
mhm.
or I will get the accolades that I need to fill a hole within myself. And
Yeah.
this misunderstanding of the martyr can sometimes be an unconscious driver of this. And we must recognize that, and recognize that that is not self loving, and recognize that that is based on an old paradigm. There are echoes of martyr yourself here and you will be rewarded in heaven. There are echoes of you must emulate Jesus in the stations of the cross and pain and suffering, and then you will get your reward later. There are echoes of that in the misunderstanding of the martyr. And one of the things that I think it's very important for us to do, and I'm so glad you brought it up, is to address that by understanding there's a misunderstanding there. And that misunderstanding can thwart our prosperity,
Mhm.
because the misunderstanding of the martyr is the belief that the martyr must martyr herself or himself for love. And
Yeah.
so I'm glad we can unpack that. Thank you
Absolutely.
for bringing that up.
Sure. I love how you put that misunderstanding of the martyr. What for me, what that highlights is the in that understanding, the transactional nature of earning love,
Yes,
by doing, instead
yes.
of I am worthy to be loved by God and by
Be,
people because I exist and I'm human,
because I
versus
am.
the things. Yes, because I
Yes.
am. Because
Yes,
I am.
exactly. And so, what we're going to do in the next segment is we're going to support people in developing a deeper consciousness and awareness of self love, and how they can do some practices to develop more self love, because self love is one of the keys to prosperity. So, everybody at home, I want you to get your questions ready. I haven't put on my glasses to see your comments. You may already have them in there, but we're going to take your questions in the next segment when we come back after the break. So please stay with us here on the Miracle of Prosperity on the New Thought Media Network.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And please help us welcome Om Center for Spiritual Living in La Mesa, California. Thank you for your monthly donation. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, for your most generous donation. And a special thanks to Hefferlin Foundation for your generous technology grant. And Suze Ajit, thank you for your very generous donation. And a super special thank you to Dr. Tracy Brown, RSCP. Thanks for being a super donor. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.
And we're back here on the New Thought Media Network with the Miracle of Prosperity. And what we've established so far with Jamila White, psychic, life coach, and intuitive author of the book, A Year of Self-Love Journal. What we've established is that self-love is an extremely important aspect of prosperity. It's actually pivotal to prosperity and integral to it. And we must develop a consciousness of self-love. Now, before the break, one of the things we did was to look at self-love simply because we are. I am loving because I am. Now, when we say I am, we are invoking the highest, most powerful creative principle. Because anything we put after the I am, actually, we are commanding the universe to manifest. So when we simply say I am, what we're really saying is I am lovable, I am holy, I am deserving, I am. We're affirming our divinity. And that takes us out of our ego consciousness where we see ourselves as guilty, undeserving, weak, unloved, unlovable, or anything unlike love. So what we're doing when we place ourselves in that energy of I am is we are simply allowing ourselves to be filled with the unconditional love of Source. We are allowing ourselves to have a visceral experience of that light and that love and that energy of Source pouring to us and through us and embracing us. And we are allowing that energy to transform our energy. So we are learning in a very visceral way that we too are love, for we are the I am made manifest. And that's one of the ways that we can teach ourselves to love ourselves and teach ourselves of our deservingness of the prosperity that we desire. Now, Jamila has 52 ways in this book. Jamila, what are some of your favorite ways to develop more of a self-loving consciousness?
Oh goodness, I had parts of writing this book were so much fun.
Uh-huh.
One of my favorite things was about there's a chapter. Is it week 43? I can't remember which week it is, but there is a chapter about giving yourself permission to grieve not just the loss of a person or a pet or the loss of something, but allowing yourself to grieve what you thought should have happened in your life but did not.
Mm,
And
yes.
in our culture, we don't have a space to grieve something that was never seen in the first place. I was
Yes.
in this
Okay.
relationship. We were supposed to grow old together. I'm allowed to grieve the loss of the person, but I'm not allowed to grieve, or there's no encouragement or support for us to grieve um,
The
the
loss
plan
of
I have.
possibility or potential.
Yes, and the plan I
Yes.
have for us to grow old together. I didn't get a
Hmm.
chance to grieve something I didn't do. I didn't get my degree, or I didn't get a fair shake at my job, so I
Hmm.
never got the promotion. All of those things. And there was an exercise in there about writing down all of the things that you
Yes.
wish should have happened or you think should have
Yes.
happened, but
Hmm.
did not happen. And then getting a bottle of bubbles from the dollar store and
Hmm.
saying out loud, I am now willing to release. And then you name one thing and blow a bubble and watch it float away.
Mm.
And as it pops,
Yes.
you release one thing. And then you keep blowing a
Mm.
bubble and naming the thing that you are releasing. And you are physically watching it go away until you've
Hmm.
gotten through the whole list.
That.
And so that was one of my favorite exercises was this bubble release
Yes.
ritual
I
of
love that.
yes,
I
yes.
love that. You know why I love that? Because
Why
it
is that?
tracks with lesson 122 of A Course in Miracles. Forgiveness offers everything I want.
Mm,
And let me tell you how the two track and why this is so important. Lesson 122 in A Course in Miracles says forgiveness offers everything I want.
mhm.
And one aspect of forgiveness is releasing the demand that things be any way other than how they are.
Yes.
So what
Yes.
you're
Oh,
saying
I
is,
love that.
yeah, so what you're saying is, I am grieving the demand that I had that things be a different way. I am grieving the disappointment, the anger, the frustration, the sadness, sometimes even the anger and the rage
Yes.
that things are not, that things are this way and not that way that my ego envisioned them to be. And
Yes.
when we are in that space, we are not allowing love because we are not feeling love, because we believe that love is somewhere in that image or that imago that we created in our minds. Love is in us growing old together and he died on me. Love is in
Mhm.
us growing old together and he left me. Love
Mhm.
is in that job that was supposed to promote me so I could get this better house, and the job didn't promote me and I lost the house.
Yes.
And so what you're saying is, this is a way to release those grievances that
Yes.
stand between us and the
Yep.
prosperity that we desire.
Absolutely. That's all I realize. It's week 17.
17?
The
Okay.
whole theme of week 17 is releasing what you think should have been so that you can free up that energy to celebrate what is and to welcome what could be. So the affirmation for that week for 17 is, I release what should have been and fully embrace with gratitude the life I have
Mhm.
today. And then the journaling prompts are about identifying something that you're holding on to. And then the second
Yes.
journaling prompt is, what are some benefits of the path that your life ended up taking?
Hmm.
What are you grateful for, and what transpired that may have even been better at some point than what you had
Yes.
planned for yourself. What were there any pleasant surprises, and whether there were not, what's in your life
Hmm.
now that you can be grateful for today? And then there's also
Hmm.
an exercise in rewriting a circumstance, because we are the authors of our own story and of our own life. And if you don't like how something happened, you can get
Hmm.
out some pen and paper and write a new ending, and then with the power of your imagination and your creativity, create a new ending, but it
Yes.
gives you some power to let you know that there's another way to look at this. And you're
Yes, which is
calling
one of the
in,
key tenets of A Course in Miracles. Help
yes,
me see this differently.
help
There
me
is
see.
another way of looking at the world.
Yes.
And and so what you're doing is, you're giving us some exercises for self-love
Mhm.
that can open us to the miracle of prosperity. And that is
Absolutely.
powerful. Thank
Yeah.
you. And we've got a question that's quite
Oh, sure.
fascinating. Yes. How can we move through the discomfort we might feel when we consider self-love?
Ooh, yeah, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a juicy question. Thank you
Isn't
for
that
asking.
juicy? Mm-mm-mm.
Okay, so how do we move through the discomfort? I think the first step is to acknowledge the discomfort. Sometimes
Yes.
we just want to skip it, or
Mhm.
repress it and stuff it down, but just to say, this
Mhm.
is how I'm feeling. I
Mhm.
feel frustrated. I feel unworthy. I feel unqualified. I don't feel
Mhm.
ready. Um, I don't feel like I deserve self love. And to acknowledge
Mhm.
how you feel. And then
Mhm.
to move into, you don't always just go from, I feel unworthy to, hey, I love myself. There's a lot of steps in between, or a lot of layers
Yes.
between. And so
Yes.
sometimes when we make a statement that we don't agree with, and on the inside, our bodies, ourselves, our souls reject it because we're not
Mhm.
ready. So maybe it's going, instead of going from I don't feel worthy to I love myself, it's I don't feel worthy. And maybe the next step is I'm willing to learn how to love myself.
Mhm.
And you say something until it feels right in your spirit, that addresses, it lights up when you hit something that's truthful. Because if you say I love myself and it's not true yet, your body kind of tenses. So then
Yes.
maybe you take a step back, and I'm willing to learn how to love myself, or I'm
I'm
ready.
willing to be willing to consider ways that I can love myself. I'm not willing, but I'm willing to be willing.
Yes,
I
I may
call it,
not know how, but I'm willing. I'm willing to learn.
yes.
I'm willing to
Yes.
try.
I call it that tax bill from the DC government. One year I got like this like $10,000 tax bill from the
Oh,
DC
wow.
government. And it was like, they had already sent me an email, said you owe $10,000. I'm like, what the? I won't tell you the whole story. But the bottom
Mhm.
line, I didn't want to pay it because they took 10 years to collect it, and I didn't even know it was outstanding. And so by the time they collected it, it was $10,000. So I got this
Mm.
letter, right? I knew it was coming because they had already sent me an email. I got the letter, and it's like, I saw the letter, I kept it in the mailbox, right?
Mhm.
The next day I saw the letter again. I kept it in the mailbox, but I was less angry and nervous and scared. The next day I said, okay, I'm going to take it out of the mailbox. The next day I said, okay, I'm going to take it down up from the garage up to where I put all my bills. I put it on the bottom of the bills, but I put it there anyway. The next day I said, okay, I'm going to take this out and set some light to it. The next day it's like, okay, I'm going to open this. Luckily, I did all those steps before the dang thing was due, and they fined me some more. But the point of it is that little baby steps. Like Lao Tzu said, the longest journey is comprised of the first few steps, 1,000 little steps. Take little steps. Be willing to be open to a new idea. Be willing to hear a new idea. Be willing to just shift a little bit if you choose, when you're ready, as you're ready. And that's how we
a little bit. That's it. And I feel like this book is not magical, right?
Yes.
This is words and paper and design. Yes. But what is magical is when you give your attention to something. Yes. Your intention and your attention to something. That's where the magic is. And this book is designed to keep us focused. And if you can do something for a week, a month, 6 months, a year, your life has no choice but to change, because anything you give your attention and intention to will grow. So the book is designed to keep us focused on what we want and how we can grow ourselves and grow our hearts and grow our self-love and grow our capacity to receive love, so that we can give from the overflow place, right, that we talked about earlier. But the book itself is not magical. It's our intention and attention is where the magic resides.
Yes, and let me just underline that, because that's so important and so powerful, Jamila. The magic is in you, and the development of your inner energy of self-love is critical for your allowing of prosperity. And energy flows where attention goes. Every time you focus on self-love, you are in essence saying, God, I let you in. And this goes back to Charlotte's question. God, I let you into that place where I have not been willing to love myself. God, I let you into that place that has been hurt. God, I let you into that place where I've been scared. God, I let you into that place where I've been wounded, because these are the places that are saying no to the yes that you have already offered me. And I have been saying no because of my fear, because of my wounds, and because of my misinformation from the past. So each time you do one of the exercises, you facilitate the magic. The book is not a magic. This book is not a magic. The Soul of Prosperity is not the magic. The magic is within you. And the books help you to uncover, unleash, and allow the magic to happen. Amen?
Amen. So we call forth our magic. That's why it's a practice. Yes. That's why it's prompts and practices. Practice is something that you do over and over again, or it's a series of things that you do over and over again with consistency of some kind, and to create that change. But even just doing 1 week and quitting, having your attention on self-love for a week will still make a difference.
Energy flows where attention goes. Amen. And the interesting thing that just popped into my head is so fascinating. The more you love yourself, the more you'll want to love yourself, because loving yourself feels good and not loving yourself feels bad. And there is this thing within all of us. We were made to feel good. We were made to be at peace. We were made to be in joy. We were made to be fulfilled. So like a homing pigeon, there is a part of us within us that hones on that goal. Absolutely. And so every incremental step that we take will cause us to want to move forward even more. And so we had another question, and this one is how to manifest self-love when we do not feel self-love. Any more steps?
Okay, that's a good question also. Thank you for that. I would say, I don't know that I would choose to use the word manifesting self-love, because it makes it seem like it's this outside thing that I can create outside of me. But I feel like it's more of an allowing energy and a choosing energy.
Yes.
And self-love isn't a one-time thing. It's choosing yourself and choosing to love yourself over and over and over again, making loving decisions for yourself
Yes.
over and
Mhm.
over and over again,
Mhm.
every day deciding that I'm going to love myself. And then you can say that in the morning, but then the rest of the day, you're presented with choices and options all day throughout the day where you get to choose. Am I
Yeah.
going to choose the self loving option? I had
Mhm.
to learn how to love myself differently in the writing of this book. At the
Mm.
time that I was writing, first of all, I had a very aggressive deadline with the publisher, 40 days to write this manuscript, at a time where I had a lot of other things happening, business and personally. Days after I signed the book deal and started writing, I had an incident with a home invasion where I had to move suddenly and deal with the trauma of that while
Mhm.
writing the book. While
Mhm.
this was happening, um, I had another urgent situation. And so what started to happen was I started
Mhm.
keeping very late hours and not
Mm.
sleeping well because I wanted to write, write, write. And I wasn't treating myself well. It got to a point where my body was starting to rebel and break down because of the day
Mm.
after day of the way that I was
Mhm.
driving myself to meet the deadline,
Mhm.
and I had to stop after my
Mhm.
body gave me many warnings to
Mm.
stop and say, I'm not in integrity. Not only am I being
Mhm.
mean to myself, but I'm not
Mhm.
in integrity about writing about how to be loving to yourself in a way that is not loving to myself.
Mm.
I can't put a
Wow.
book out about self-love and write it in a way that is punishing.
Loving.
I would
Yes.
never do this to another person and insist on them keeping this kind of schedule. And I
Mhm.
had to say, I have to stop. I have to pause. I have to rest.
Right.
I need time to heal. I'm going to communicate with my publisher and say, we need to do this a little differently because here's what's going on in my world. Like,
Mhm.
not only do I need to find a new place to live immediately, but I need to give myself some room around a trauma that I just experienced. So, fortunately, I had a wonderful editor and a publisher that was willing
Mhm.
to work with me around that. But even when
Mhm.
they did, I was still driving myself in a way that was not loving. And I had to stop and say, I can't, first of all, I can't treat myself this way. It's not kind.
Mhm.
Secondly, I can't write a book on this topic in the energy that's the opposite of the book, of the topic of this
'Cause
book.
that's a recipe. The energy you put into the book is the energy and that's a recipe for the failure of the book.
Exactly. And it would
Yes.
be hypocritical of me
Mhm.
to be trying to
Mhm.
teach something that I was in active resistance to and
Yes.
actively operating against. So I
So
had
you gave yourself permission to give yourself a reset.
yes.
And so one of the things you're saying is everyone love yourself enough to give yourself permission to
Yes.
have whatever reset you need. Now,
Give your
Jamila, one of the
yes.
other things that I absolutely love that you said was do things incrementally. Because
Mhm.
one of the exercises that I guide people through in classes and workshops is I am willing to accept this. I am willing to allow this to be
Mm,
acceptable. I am willing to examine this and allow the grace of God to embrace it. And I am willing to examine this, allow the grace of God to embrace it so that I can know that it is acceptable. And just like a diamond has 68 facets, we have so many facets of ourselves, so many facets of ourselves that we are judging, that we are condemning, that we are not ready to accept. And if we take them little by little by little by little by little and allow the love of God, the grace of God, the embrace of the universe, the unconditional love that comes from source, to just take each one and say, okay, I'm willing to see this differently. I'm willing to examine this the way God sees it. I'm willing to look at what error in perception I have had that has caused me to judge this aspect of what God has created. And that, to me, is a wonderfully incremental way to
mhm,
develop more balanced, positive self esteem and self regard based on unconditional love, little by little by little. And
little
so
by little.
that's, yeah, yeah, because it's a step by step
Step
process.
by step, it's week by week, it's day by day, sometimes it's hour by hour. Uh,
Mhm,
and that's what I love the the approach to this book. It was
mhm,
about how can I give myself a little bit of time each week to
mhm.
focus on myself, to
Yes.
examine my thoughts, my feelings, my choices, my all of that, my energy, and
Mhm.
just start to assess and observe where I am, and then
Mhm.
start doing the exercises to uncover what I really want. One of the chapters is about energy leaks and all
Mhm.
of the things that we say yes to that we don't really want to say yes to
Right.
because we want
Mhm.
to appease, please, or perform,
Mhm.
and how does that drain our energy? And then what does it
Yes.
prevent us from being able to do that we really
Mhm.
do want to do? And so can we
Yes.
make it a sacred no? you know,
Yes.
and to give room every time we say yes to something that we don't want, um, we're
We're
being
saying no to something that we want.
saying no to something that we want, or
Yes.
filling our schedule up so much so that if something we want to say yes comes along, we no longer have the capacity. So one of the
Yes.
exercises is about getting in the habit of first asking myself, not do I want to do it, but do I have the capacity to add
Mm.
this thing in right now?
And is it
Do I
loving? Is it
And is it
self-loving,
love?
self-affirming it to add this capacity? Or am I in some way punishing myself out of guilt,
Mhm. Yes,
obligation, or a
yes.
feeling of not enoughness? I am not enough unless I do.
Not enoughness is huge. Or
Yes.
trying to meet someone else's, um, trying to meet
Expectation,
expectation
because
of who
we are
they
in that
want.
transaction. If I do this, then you will love me because I don't feel loving unless I do this, and I don't feel loving of my
Yes.
own from that inner generated light that is self-love.
Yes. Or I don't wanna seem selfish, or I don't want
Yes.
to displease this person,
Yes.
you know,
And
all of the
let's
things.
end this segment on one idea. Self-love is not selfish. It is the most
It's not.
selfless thing you can do because self-love is not about bubble bathing the ego. Self-love is
Mhm.
about being in a consciousness and in alignment with the highest love. And the more you are in alignment with, and the more you contain and hold and reflect and emit that highest love, that's the greatest service you can give to anyone, everyone, and yourself. So, developing a consciousness of self love is not selfish. It is actually
Absolutely.
the most selfless thing you can do. And so, we're going to talk about that a little bit more. We're going to have a couple little surprises for you
Uh-oh.
after the break. So, stay with us here on the Miracle of Prosperity, here on the New Thought Media Network.
New Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
And we're back here on the New Thought Media Network with the Miracle of Prosperity and Jamila White. So, Jamila, what are you up to these days?
Oh, good question. So I am about to launch a new community that I'm very excited about. So everyone who has the journal, part of what comes with that is a free online support group where they can meet like-hearted people who are also working in their journal and have support throughout the year as they're doing their year of self-love. I'll be in there answering questions as well as doing monthly free live chats. And if anyone has the book and they're interested in becoming part of this community, it's my gift to the community. They can go to ayearofselflove.com and sign up to get notified when it launches next month. I'm really, really excited about that. And the other thing is I am about to launch a brand new program called Empath Energy Reset. And it's a six-week program to help sensitive folks manage their energy, fill those energy leaks, and disconnect from energy vampires and energy parasites. And then once they get their energy back, using that energy and their sensitivity as their superpower, going from feeling overwhelmed and exhausted into feeling that their sensitivity is an empowering thing that is working for them instead of working against them. So those are things that are coming up in February. Really excited about those.
Wonderful. You've got some wonderful things coming up.
I'm excited. Thank you. And what is coming up for you? What are you working on?
Well, I'm working on a new book. I'm not ready to work with the title yet, but I'm working on a new book on the heels of the two that I just released in December. I released Create Your Self-Manifesting Vision Board. And this book differs from all the other vision board books because it's more than just slapping pictures on some cardboard. It goes into the spiritual practices that you can use to bring your vision boards to life, ways that you can infuse your vision boards with more energy, ways that you can just literally amplify the energy of the vision board in you so that it has no choice but to be made manifest. It's a short, quick read, but it's so full of so many tips on how you can make your vision boards manifest. And that's one of the books I released at the end of the year. The other book that I released at the end of the year was Prosperity from A to Z. And this is also another short ebook. And this is, in a sense, the Cliff Notes version of The Soul of Prosperity, which is the 266-page book that I released. It's the Cliff Notes version because it's got 25 different prosperity principles and practices. It's 40 pages long. You can read it while brewing your coffee in the morning. And if you do one of these practices every day, within 40 days, you will have developed such a prosperity consciousness that prosperity will be inevitable, that you won't be able to fight it off with a stick. And many people like this 40-page book because it's like, oh yeah, I got to do that. Oh yeah, I got to do that. And then when they do that regularly, when they integrate these prosperity practices and principles in their everyday life, before they know it, they're living more prosperously and their prosperity shows up outside of them. So I'm still working with those books because people still ask me questions on them, but I'm working on them. And I'm going to let everybody know the title of the new one sooner rather than later.
I can't wait to see what that's going to be.
Yes, it's going to be exciting. And I'm so excited for you as well. Congratulations on the new book. Good luck with it. And we all just bid you such good tidings. Thank you for being on the Miracle of Prosperity. We're so glad you're here. Everybody, thank Jamila White. God bless you. And everyone have a wonderful evening here on the New Thought Media Network.